muted, and if Andrea, you can just let people in, I guess, as they join. Is that how it works? Okay.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody, for being here, and lovely to see so many familiar faces and some new ones. And we've received your Dharma questions, so we're going to do our best to, I'll ask them of Jetsunma, and she'll, enlighten us with the directions we need to follow. So the first one we're starting with is especially relevant, of course, in this past year on death and dying. So the question was around death and dying and where to focus the mind's attention and what best practices to do as we become very aware that we're taking our last breaths.
Well, I mean, actually, the question was a whole lot more complicated than that.
Yes, so we distilled it to that.
But
should I read the whole question?
You could read the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you please review the dissolution stages of the elements in consciousness during the dying process? What is the order of releasing the elements? Please discuss where to focus the mind's attention from within. Should we concentrate on the crown of the head and then just send energy and mind straight up and out? Where should we be aiming for? And should we visualize clear light? Should we try for Dewachin, Sukhavati, or simply blissful pure lands? Any prayer or mantra that we should use during the process? Also, please explain if one can reach Tukdam. Is the focus then at the energetic heart center of the body rather than the crown of the head? How do we use breath during the dying process?
So that's why Gatsel very compassionately compressed it. The point is that although, of course, there is the dissolution of the elements and a dissolution of consciousness at the time of death, they don't necessarily come in exactly the order that they're written about. I mean, the lamas say, this is not just me saying, lamas say that you don't exactly know what order they're going to come in. And quite frankly, unless one is already very familiar with these practices, at the time of dying, it's too late. Especially for the dissolution of the consciousnesses and the, can you hear me?
Oh, Denise?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because we're getting notices saying the interconnection is not good.
Yeah.
So especially with the dissolution of the consciousnesses and the recognition of the clear light nature, unless one is already very familiar with the clear light during lifetime, we will not be able to recognize it and hold to it, dissolve into it at the time of death. So therefore, both in Tantra and in other practices, there is the practices for becoming very familiar with it. It's called the mother clear light because our ordinary nature of the mind is the sun clear light. Now, a sun, if it is used to seeing the mother at the time when she's completely revealed at death, will race towards the mother. But if the sun is never seen the mother, even though the mother appears, the sun will not run towards her. He will pull back. Who's this strange being? So in other words, unless we are very, very familiar with the nature of the mind during our lifetime, we will not be able to recognize it at the time of death. Therefore, for most ordinary people, don't worry about all the dissolutions of the elements, the earth into the water, into the fire, into the, wind. I mean, oh my God, have I missed it? You're lying there dying, right? Oh dear, was that the earth element or was that the wind element? Or which comes first? Was it the fire comes first? No. What? I mean, forget it. Okay? Relax. Concentrate on the object of one's devotion, either the Lama or Tara, Chenrezig, whoever you have devotion to. and think of going towards the light, and then let go. It's very, very important to let go. No more attachment to this lifetime, to this body, this mind, to one's relations, to one's wealth, one's status. Let it go. This is a whole new adventure. This is wonderful. Now, finally, we are going to find out who is right. All these religions, all these philosophies, all saying what's going to happen when we die. Finally, we are going to find out who got it right. I think that's wonderfully exciting. It's like an adventure into whole new territory. But if we have devotion and we keep our mind solely on our object of devotion as much as we can, that's all we have to worry about. It's just our openness of mind, letting go and going towards the object of our devotion. That's enough. Everything else doesn't matter. Truly, it's too complicated. You're dying. Just let everything go and just keep the mind focused on light and love. If you feel love at that time, that's wonderful. And our devotion. And the rest doesn't matter. If you want to go to a Sukhavati, to Dewachen, then you need to concentrate, especially on seeing the teacher or whoever as Amitabha or Chenrezig. But, don't worry, make friends with death. Death is not an enemy. Death is our friend. So go forward with joy and courage and devotion, and then let everything else go.
Thank you, Jetsunma. So just to let people know, we're recording the session. So thank you. Everyone's muted. Just to follow up on that, what about the idea of using, so you can focus on Amitabha or Chenrezig, and then just say their mantra also, if that's a...
If you're dying, you hardly have that. But if you have other people around you, they can be saying the mantra. If they, this is, if you are with someone who is dying, then if they are a Dharma person, to find out what is their particular object of devotion and remind them of that. And if there's a special deity or bodhisattva, then to recite the mantra for that. And the one thing, if we are with people who are dying, the one thing not to do is say to them, oh, please don't die, don't leave me. That is the worst thing we can possibly do. So what we need to do is just accept the fact that they are leaving, say, don't worry, be happy, and play even. Sometimes people like to play mantras, chanting of Mani Padme Hum or the Jutta monks or whatever. If they like that, then do it. If they don't like that, then don't do it. So, the important thing is just to have that confidence that one is going upwards and one will be received on the other side. No worries.
And is there a place like on the body, like the crown of the head? Is it helpful focus?
No,
in the heart center? The heart center.
Unless you are doing powa. Of course, if you are doing powa, then you send the consciousness, or whoever is doing powa for you will send the consciousness out the crown of the head. But again, powa is not going to work unless one has already done powa previously, the projection of the consciousness to a pure land. Unless one has already practiced and accomplished that, it will be hard to do it at the time of death. So if one has not done that, then it's better to keep try to keep the focus at the center of the heart, which is where the very subtle consciousness is and where the clear light nature of the mind will manifest.
Thank you. I think that's helpful to at least have the idea inwardly where to focus. Okay, to follow up on this theme, when a great master enters Tukdim, at what point in the dying process does it occur and what actually happens?
Well, that's quite simple. I mean, as far as explaining it, So what happens after the elements, after the earth, into the water, into the fire, into the wind? Then comes the gross consciousness, which means our ordinary chattery conceptual mind, that absorbs into the more subtle consciousness, which is our ordinary awareness. Then that subtle consciousness dissolves into the very subtle consciousness at the center of the heart chakra. And that is the pure light nature of the mind. Now, normally when we see that, ordinary people who have never experienced this in their ordinary life will react backwards, just, with a shock. What's this light? What's this open radiance? And so then immediately they will lose consciousness. When the consciousness recovers, they will be in the bardo. But if one is already very familiar, as I say, this is the mother clear light. And if the sun clear light, our own ordinary recognition of the nature of the mind, is very familiar to us, very, very stabilized, then at the time of death, when it comes completely unimpeded, finally, because our other gross consciousness, subtle consciousness have dissolved, there's only now the very subtle consciousness. So when that is revealed, then there is that instant recognition. And then they become one with the absolute nature of the mind without any impediment. And that is Tukdam. So in Tukdam, because the consciousness, the very subtle consciousness, has not departed, then the body, of course, does not.
We're just being a little patient here. Perhaps we can get them back. I'm sure they'll hop back on as soon as they're able.
Okay. Can you still hear us? Hi.
Yes, welcome back.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Yep, we were just, taking a little journey. And so is this state before or after the black near attainment, someone asks?
I think in the tantras, the black near attainment is just for a moment, and then it opens up. It's like going, they said it's a bit like that idea of going through the tunnel and then suddenly you're out in the light again. So the just momentary, this darkness, and then suddenly the light. And this again is one reason why people kind of rear against it. Then what's happening, so then you lose it. But if you're familiar with it, then you unite with it and relax into it, and then you're in a state of Tukdam.
So basically just go for the light.
Think about light, because this is the thing, not to be afraid of the light. Yeah. Embrace the light. Then you'll be fine.
And so when you're in Tukdam, that's the ground of luminosity?
Yes, that's a ground luminosity. And just recently we saw in the newspaper that this quite ordinary Tibetan lady in Bangalore, she went into Tukdam.
Yeah, she's 90.
Yeah.
I think she's still in it.
Yeah, she stayed in Tukdam for a long, long time. Yeah. And everyone was surprised because, they expect lamas and big practitioners to stay in Tukdam. This very, very ordinary lady.
Old Tibetan lady.
But
Andrea?
Yes.
Maybe it's nice for us to say mantras during when we lose them.
Sorry.
Great idea. Welcome back.
Oh, okay. Yes, you can say some Tara mantras to remove our communication obstacles. But anyway, we're lucky that we have the connection because our weather's quite bad today. And since we're in the Himalayas and you're all wherever you are, we will just be patient. And it's Saturday night. So Saturday night in India, here, everyone's on the internet. So what can we do? Anyway, we'll move right along while we have you. Is there a practice for multiplying our feelings of compassion for all?
Oh, yes. Of course, there are many practices, but again, I think keep it simple. Maybe two ways. One is to recognize that just as I would rather feel okay and I do not want to suffer, and I feel very unhappy if I do suffer, likewise, all beings want happiness and do not want to suffer. I mean, even not just human beings, but animals, birds, fish, who wants to suffer? They don't. And just as I would like to feel well and happy, likewise, all beings would rather feel well and happy. Even if they're not happy, they've never been happy, in their heart of hearts, they would like to be. And so just remembering that every single being you meet would rather be happy and does not want to suffer, that immediately brings an empathy, especially if you see someone who is suffering, to imagine, how would I feel in that situation? Because, you know, as human beings, we have the ability to reach out, to understand the feelings of others if we make a bit of, you know, effort in that direction. The Buddha himself recommended, when it comes to both loving kindness and compassion. Loving kindness means to wish others to be happy. Compassion means to wish them to be free from suffering. So the Buddha himself, in his wisdom, recommended that we start with ourselves and we make friends with ourselves. A lot of people's problem with relating with others is because they are not really relating to themselves. And so we start, therefore, by wishing happiness and well-being to ourselves, thinking how nice it would be if I just felt okay. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, I would like to feel okay. And I really don't want to feel miserable and depressed and anxious and fearful and all these other very negative states, angry, upset. Who wants that? We don't. We don't want that, even for ourselves. So we wish first for ourselves that we should be well and happy and have all sorts of naturally positive states of emotions, kindness, generosity, love, and so forth. And that we should be rid of all these negative emotions which cause so much suffering. Then we think of someone that we love, our partner, our children, our parents, our dog, whoever we love. And we think how nice it would be if they were happy and free from any suffering. Wouldn't that be lovely? And we think about that, you know, a few minutes.
So let's take that advice and put it into practice. If you all would want to see some Tara mantra recitations, I'll keep myself unmuted and please join. Om tare tutare ture soha. Om tare tutare ture soha. Om tare tutare ture soha.
So then we think of somebody neutral, people that we've never even thought about whether they're happy or not happy. Well, actually, they would like to be happy. So we wish them to be happy and free from suffering. Then someone that we really don't like very much, we have problems with, difficulties with, again, wishing them happy. Let them be happy. Let them be free from suffering. And then gradually we extend that feeling out, you know, towards the apartment we live in, then the town that we live in, then the state, then the country, then further and further, just recognizing that all the beings in there, not just the humans, but every single being wants happiness and to be free from suffering. And we wish that for them. And so the opens our heart to this unconditional compassion and love. Unconditional means I love that lot, but I don't care about that lot. Or I really would like that lot to suffer because they've made me suffer, or they're making other people suffer. And so I would like them to suffer in return. Not that. If people do bad things, that it's very sad for them. They are making bad karma. And it's also because they do not have peace and love in their heart. How sad. Would we want their mind? No, we would not. So we can easily develop compassion. There is a whole very complicated thing on, stages of seeing all beings as your mother. That doesn't always work so well in the West because many people have problems about mothers. So we won't deal with that one. But if that works for you, you can use that. There are many, many ways of doing it. But the important thing is to recognize that nobody wants to feel not good. Everybody in their heart of hearts would rather feel cheerful and not be worried, not be depressed, not be upset and angry and full of hatred or anxiety. I mean, who wants that? Nobody wants that. Nobody really wants to be jealous. Nobody really wants to be, full of all these negative emotions, because these are negative emotions, which are called klesha. It means, the word means something which hurts us, like a very hot sun. It's a klesha because it burns us and makes us feel uncomfortable. So all these negative emotions make us feel uncomfortable. And so, wishing that all beings should be free from that. And also, of course, from external problems, which so many people have such terrible, terrible lives. And you just have to think about it. And naturally, imagine yourself in that place. How would you feel if you were them? Then naturally compassion arises. I mean, it's part of our true nature. The good thing to remember is that our natural intelligence, our wisdom, and our love and compassion are part of our essential nature. They are, once we recognize our true nature, the true nature of the mind, our Buddha nature, then these qualities manifest automatically because that's who we really are. All these negative emotions like hatred and greed and envy and even fear and anxiety, they are called adventitious because they are not part of who we are. They are habits we have learned through many lifetimes, but they're not part of our true nature. So therefore, we can clean them. And that's also part of the compassion, to recognize that we all have this immense potential as human beings. And then what do we do with it? Again and again, we waste our lives on meaningless occupations instead of really focusing on the one thing which really matters. And during our daily life, this is a wonderful opportunity to practice loving kindness and compassion. People think that it's just a matter of sitting there on your cushion thinking, may all beings be well and happy. But it's not. Every single being that you meet wants happiness and doesn't want suffering. Wish them that in that moment, whoever they may be and however they are reacting to us. So our daily life is a perfect place to practice cultivating compassion, cultivating loving kindness, cultivating patience, cultivating all the good qualities that we need for the path. So, it's if you sit and think about it for 2 minutes, you can see that this is a very, very important part of who we are as human beings, to develop this deep inner empathy with all life.
Even the Om Mani Padme Hum. Just keeping that going through your mind.
You know, if you can keep through the day, these Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum going, that is also a very immediate way. Thunder. That is also a very immediate way to get to access to the nature of the mind. In fact, not just cultivating compassion, but actually for cultivating genuine wisdom too.
Okay, thank you, Jetsunma.
We lost your audio. We lost your audio. I'm not sure if you can hear us. Perhaps another little internet gremlin at play. Let's go back to our mantra. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. 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 Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha.
Okay, very good. Very good, very effective. Thank you. Okay, so we're back to this question. Sometimes it seems the more I meditate, the more muddled my mind becomes. How do I push through this? And Jetsunma had started by saying, you don't push through.
Is everybody actually on?
We are here. We're able to
think they
hear
can.
you, but we're not seeing you.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. So the point is that everybody, I mean, the Buddha 2,500 years ago said we all have monkey minds. And those monkeys are not the monkeys bored monkeys you see in zoos, just sitting there apathetically. They are the monkeys we see around this district who are always jumping around all over the place. Either they're, mostly they're either fighting each other or copulating with each other or trying to find food somewhere. Or
a couple jumped on me at Tushita.
Oh, yeah. They're nowadays, they're becoming very aggressive also.
Yeah.
And anyway, they're very restless and they never sit anywhere for very long. They're always jumping around. So the Buddha said, this is our mind. He also sometimes said that our mind is like a drunken elephant in rut. So,
yikes.
So don't worry. You're in a common condition here. I would say the important thing, if you're doing shamatha meditation or any practice you're doing, at the beginning especially, keep it short. Don't push too far because the mind will get restless and it will just get very resistant to trying to be tamed. We have to have a tamed mind before we can train it. As the Buddha said, let the wise man tame his mind. A well-tamed mind brings happiness. How to tame the mind? Well, slowly, gently, like a wild animal. You go towards it gently. Don't frighten it. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, we sit, and whatever our practice, shamatha or mantras or whatever our practice, not too long. Try just to rest the mind on the object of our practice. And if the mind gets lost and goes off, no problem. Just bring it back. As soon as we are aware, we bring it back. Then it goes off again, and then we bring it back. And then it goes off again, and then we bring it back. And then after a while, if it's very restless, we stop the practice for a little while, just rest, then start again. So keep the practice short. Don't Don't push too hard. People want to sit down and immediately meditate for 1 hour and then wonder why their mind is creating chaos. So 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that's enough. If even that is difficult, 5 minutes. 5 minutes of really trying to just rest the mind and be focused is better than a whole hour of just fighting with the mind. We're not fighting with anybody. And also it's important to recognize that the thoughts themselves are not the problem. The problem is only that we get swept along by our thoughts. So just focus, but relax. Keep the mind very spacious, but focused. Keep the attention there. Short periods, rest. Short periods, rest. Don't fight the mind. The important thing is awareness. This is always the most important thing, that we have this ability to be attentive and to know what we are doing. If you're saying your mantras, there should be that knowing that we are saying the mantras. If we are watching the breath, there should be the knowing of the breath. So it's this awareness, this mindfulness, which is the important thing. And all these practices are to help us to keep the mind focused in one place and not jumping all over the place and being swept along by the thinking, conceptual thinking mind. But slowly, slowly. And the most important thing is to be focused, but at the same time, to be very open and relaxed, not tight, not pushing, not, I've got to focus on this. Not like that at all. Very relaxed. Enjoying. If we do something, if you're reading a book, you enjoy. If you're watching a movie, you enjoy. Nobody has to force you. Somebody doesn't have to stand behind us saying, read that. If you're reading something which is interesting, if they take it away, you're miserable. So the point is that if we can do things shortly so that we can still be enjoying them, then the mind naturally will gravitate towards that. And at the end of the session, we should have a sense of presence, of being present within ourselves. And the mind should be clear and alert and relaxed. Then we know, yes, now we're on the right path.
Okay, a little bit of a follow-up to a meditation.
Just another thing is that Buddhists are always talking about practice. And that is what we are doing. We are practicing. Nobody ever sat down at an instrument and a piano and immediately played a Rachmaninoff concerto. They have to practice their scales first. And when we practice the scales, we have to practice, then we practice, then we practice, then we practice, until finally we begin to understand how to work with this instrument. And so it's the same with meditation. We have to practice and practice until finally the mind begins to understand what to do and cooperates. And then we can go forward from that. But even the Dalai Lama or whoever, they still talk about practice. It's like you're traveling, but you never quite arrive. But anyway, we're all on the road. That's the important thing.
Yeah, probably mastery can't come in any other way.
Yes. Yeah. How can you? Spontaneously, it doesn't happen unless, if you were a great master in your past life. But even the great masters, still, they talk about practice. So don't despair. Nothing to despair. You're in very, very good company. We all of us have the same problem. So don't worry. Just keep going. And as His Holiness Dalai Lama says, never give up.
Yeah. And just rejoice that you have a practice.
Yeah, rejoice you have a practice, indeed.
Measuring progress in shamatha meditation is described through the 10 stages, but how do we measure progress in analytical meditation? and go past the intellectual understanding where mind feels, quote, I got this. Why am I even spending time on grasping this concept?
You know, I don't know much about the various kinds of Vipassana practice which you might have been taught. In the Mahamudra practice, the Vipassana comes after we are able to observe the mind. When we are able to, like, the mind is described as being like a river ever flowing, all our thoughts and feelings just flowing endlessly past. And normally we are right in the middle of the river being swept along with by the water. So therefore, once we have developed the ability to be attentive and focused and aware, then we step out onto the banks of the river and just watch the river rather than being part of the river. So that is all part of shamatha meditation. When that is very clear, and when, as a result of our awareness being strong, the thought moments get less, and it seems like our mind is calming down and becoming slower as we watch it. Then we change from the shamatha to the vipassana, and in this method, we question the mind itself. We question the thoughts. What is a thought? We swim in an ocean of thought, but like the fish, we don't know what is water. And we believe our thoughts. We identify with our thoughts. We think what we think is who we are, our memories, our ideas, our opinions, our plans, our judgments. This is real, this is me. And so this is, in Buddhism, as you know, is our fundamental delusion. So in order to understand that, we have to be able to know the thoughts. So the vipassana is taking a thought and analyzing it to death, not with more thinking, but by looking, like with a big question mark in the mind. What is a thought? Where does it come from? Where does it go to? What is it? And as we really look at it very deeply, we might recognize that, like a very colorful bubble, you go click and it's empty. Thoughts are empty in their nature, but saying to ourselves thoughts are empty in our nature will not liberate us from thoughts. We have to experience that. Once we have genuinely experienced the nature of the thought or the emotion, really known it in its true nature, we don't have to keep doing that. Because one thought's same as another thought. Good thoughts, bad thoughts, they're just thoughts. But we have to really experience it, because if we really experience it, then something shifts in our consciousness. Until that time, we have to keep looking.
You said in the book, interrogate. What is the thought? Like really interrogate it, put it under the lens.
You have to question it. You have to look at it. And when one really, really sees it in its true nature, it reveals itself, then we don't have to keep doing that anymore. That just stirs up the mind too much. We can go on from that.
Okay, thank you, Jetsunma. We often talk about causes and conditions for all that exists and interdependence in the Dharma teachings. We hear that things are devoid of independent existence. Where does personal responsibility, accountability sit in this argument? Like, for example, how can we condone harming animals? Is that an outcome of past karma when the conditions and causes arrived, or is it an input to a future outcome?
The point is, we have to recognize there are two truths. There is ultimate truth, which is the non-self-existence of any entity in the world, which is why His Holiness is very interested in quantum physics, because they're saying the same thing. And so ultimately everything is space and energy, but in the meantime, we also have conventional or relative truth. For example, I mean, this laptop here is ultimately just atoms and space and energy and so forth. And if I was a great master, I could see it like that. But at the same time, if I got hold of it and hit Gatsel on the head with it, she would know. And even if she's thinking empty, 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 she will get a bruise. So we live within the world of relative truth, even though to keep us focused, we have to think of the ultimate truth. But, we live within the relative truth. So if we see someone who is harming an animal, instead of sitting there thinking it's all empty, and try to help that animal. Because even though it may be the karma of that animal to be harmed, it might also be the karma of that animal to be rescued. So therefore, we cannot say, well, I don't have to do anything, because maybe the whole interconnection is with our doing something. You don't just sit there thinking compassion. You'd go out there and you do something about it. Of course you do. There's no question of that.
Okay. Having taken the journey herself in a foreign land, how does Jetsunma view the journey of modern Indian women actively taking up Dharma in the path as an informed choice in a society that has other expectations of them?
Well, of course, nowadays, one of the interesting things living in India is how many educated Indians are becoming interested in the Dharma, men and women both. I mean, previously, in many years past, when one gave talks like in locally, mostly it would only be foreigners. Nowadays, many, many Indians are coming. I mean, half the audience often are Indians. And also we give talks in Pune, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and so forth. There's a great interest nowadays among, as I say, middle-class educated Indians in the Dharma. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama also gives teachings specifically for Indians. And it's crowded. I mean, so many people come. So of all that, probably the majority are females. And I think in that class, there is not too much problem. I mean, because those women are very strong ladies mostly. I mean, becoming Buddhist doesn't mean you're going to become a nun. Of course, there are also Indian nuns now in the Tibetan tradition, and they're very fine women. And I guess their families have accepted what their choice, because they are from educated upper class families. But of course, normally, just because you accept the Dharma doesn't mean that therefore you're going to renounce the world. I mean, most Indian ladies who are involved with Dharma practices are also married, they have children, they have professions and so forth. So I don't think it really makes that much difference as far as their society, because they are from educated backgrounds, so their families accept it. In the lower caste, the only ones who really are involved mostly with Buddhism would be the untouchable, the Dalek class. Of course, there are many millions of lower caste Indians who become Buddhists and still do become Buddhists. I don't quite know why they do. They lose the advantages of being part of their society, and they don't really gain too much from their Buddhist affiliations. But there are millions of them, and wonderful people, some of them, really fantastic, really doing the best they can with very, very difficult social obstacles on all sides. But really, really, especially among the young, they are really, really trying to do something for their people. And they're very inspiring, actually, if you meet them. So I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't think that I mean, I have many, many Indian friends, lady friends, who are very devoted to the Dharma and have their own lamas and do their own practices. and are often, as I say, married with children, whom they are bringing up. Some of them have problems with their husband, but nothing to do with that, just because their husbands are the way they are. But I think, since Buddhism is Indian, right? After all, Buddha was an Indian. And, it teaches people to be kind, to be good, to be generous, and all good things. I don't see why there would be any problem, really.
Okay, thank you, Jetsunma.
I mean, all the Indian ladies I know don't seem to have any problem. There must be others who do, but I've not met any.
Let's see. Which practices would be best to focus on related to the pandemic? If people have multiple practices, can it depend on how much time they have to practice, or the one they feel the most connected to during any given session?
Oh, I would say, many lamas are recommending various practices especially for pacifying the spirits in the world at this time, or evoking the protective spirits at this time. So my advice would be to find one which really speaks to you and do it. And if not that, then one can do Tonglen, one can do compassion, one can do a Mani Padme Hung and send out to all the world. Any of these things is good. What we need is to send out good thoughts, because the world is so enveloped in all this fear, anxiety, anger, and very negative thinking. And so what we need not to do is plug into that negative thinking. And what we do need to do is to cultivate incredibly positive thoughts of love, kindness, healing, compassion, anything which speaks to our heart, and send that out everywhere to help to dilute somewhat this very, very negative pollution, this mental pollution, psychic pollution, which is enveloping the world. It's not just physical, it's very much psychic. And so we need to be very, very positive in our thinking, and send out lots of real light to overcome the darkness.
Actually, His Holiness has been recommending Tara.
Yes, why not? I mean, Tara is fearless compassion, fearless. She's not a wimp. She will face anything. And, she wonderful, wonderful.
Yes. To follow up on that, then again, maybe this is hand in hand. How do we work to dissolve the negativity that seems to be rampant in the US?
Well, that's it. The way is not to plug into that negativity, not to indulge in that negativity, including the fear and the anxieties and things like this, as much as possible to cultivate this inner courage within us, this inner ability to look towards things which are positive, things which are good, to also outreach to as much as possible to help beings if you can do that. But even if you cannot do that because you're all in lockdown or whatever, at least we can send out positive thoughts throughout the world. And this is very, very important, really, really, because if Buddhists, along with everyone else, just ends up being paranoid and angry and upset and worried, then we're just feeding into that negative energy. So, I mean, Tonglen is very good at that, if you can do it, to bring in all that negative energy and transform it into light. That would be a wonderful thing to do.
As one of my friends says, we're not here to add suffering to the suffering.
Well,
Yeah. And again, this goes, is there a practice in particular to help with healing the earth?
Loving kindness. And also to all those, in many ways, it does look as though, all the invisible beings on this earth who have been here to take care of the earth have really gotten fed up with us human beings. I mean, really, we'll talk about people coming along and messing up everything. And I think they're fighting back. Fire, wind, water, earth, everything is fighting back, all the elements. And so to send out lots of compassion and loving kindness to all these beings also, and to, you know, let them know that you care about them and you love them, and also try not to do anything to harm the earth. You know, I mean, you know, it's no good talking about it and then we go off and pollute more. We also have to be a bit responsible as much as we can what we're doing, how much we are also adding to the problems instead of trying to find solutions to the problems. But again, as I say, you know, it's all in the mind as well as our physical actions to send out lots and lots of positivity into the world as much as possible. And plant a tree.
And then how do we address the widening gap between the wealthy and the poor?
The wealthy have always been wealthy. The poor have always been poor. Open up any history book. Come on, this is samsara. This is samsara, guys. The Buddha never said it was a joyride. The Buddha never said it was all equal. The Buddha never said that you're going to have a great time and all beings are going to be well and happy. We don't make the karma for that. But if you look at any history book, you will see the aristocrats and the peasants. And we're just back to that again. You know, that's how human beings think. I don't say it's good. I think if someone could think up a better system, that would be fantastic. But in the meantime, don't be surprised. Because greed, as the Buddha said, is like salty water. He said we could drink the whole ocean and still be thirsty. Well, we see it now, don't we? They have drunk the whole ocean and they're even more thirsty than when they started. That if someone could kindly come up with a better economic system which people will actually, you know, buy into, that would be fantastic. But anywhere you look, including in communist countries, there's the wealthy and there are the poor. But what can you do? I mean, please, if you can think up some better system, which everybody will agree on, that would be fantastic. But if you open up any history book, it's all the same, however far back you go.
Samsara is samsara.
Samsara is samsara. But this is where we learn. This is the whole point. We're all, as I always say, we're in a prison house. We're all in the prison house of samsara. Some people are in the penthouse suites. Some people are in the dungeons. But it's all a prison. And those in the penthouse suites this time, next time, may end up in the dungeons. So that's the way it is. Be careful of your actions of body, speech, and mind. And cultivate generosity.
Okay, and then this question, how do I establish my morning meditation practice when I feel so rushed into getting on with the business of the day and maintain it when I host visitors and when I travel?
Keep it short, keep it simple. Really, really, really. My Lama, Kamtu Rinpoche, he said to me exactly that. He said, keep your practice short and simple, but do it. And so if we get too ambitious and it's too long, we can't keep it up. In this modern world with so many calls on our time, you know, oh God, I could sit for an hour. Where am I going to get an hour from?
Even in the nunnery, sometimes mine gets too carried away.
You know, be practical. Better to do 10 minutes and make sure you're going to do, this is my time, 10 minutes. I'm going to give it totally to what I'm doing in my practice. Better that every day than long sessions, which we're going to end up getting shorter and shorter, and in the end, just abandoning altogether. So keep it short and keep your aspiration that our whole day will be our Dharma practice. That it's not just sitting on your cushion. Your cushion, yes, is to get your mind settled, get the awareness clear, set up good motivation. But then we have to use our daily life, everyone we encounter, everything we do, to develop our loving awareness, to develop our charity and generosity, to develop our patience, to develop our kindness, and try to be aware, to be present as much as we can. Then our practice is our daily life. Our daily life is our practice. Then you can't say, I have no time, because as long as we're conscious, that's our time for practice, isn't it? And the more difficult people are, the better the practice, because we have all sorts of wonderful things for practicing when people are really difficult for us. We are grateful. Oh, you're so horrible. Thank you. Now I can practice my patience. Without patience, we cannot attain Buddhahood. So we're grateful. So everything, walking, we can walk with mindfulness. Eating, we can eat with some mindfulness. Developing awareness, becoming more conscious. Then however long we are awake, and then you can learn dream yoga, so you're never losing any time. And, oh, you've got 24 hours every day. Isn't that wonderful? Long, long practice period.
Until you don't, so you can keep that awareness as well. Thank you, Jetsunma. So the last one, since you stated that you were seeking perfection at a young age, asking the question of what it means to be perfect, have you found it? And was the great perfection of Mahamudra what you were originally seeking, or was something else? And how would you now answer that question? What is perfection?
Yes, I mean, from an early, when I was a very small child, I always believed that we were inherently perfect and that we had to come back again and again to rediscover our innate perfection. And so as a child, my question always was, what is perfection and how do we attain it? And I asked many people, my mother, my teachers, the priest, how do we become perfect? Even the spirit guides, how do we become perfect? And they all said, you have to be good. And some said, you have to be good, you have to be kind. And even as a child, I thought, yes, but that is not perfection. Of course, we have to be good and kind. But I know people who are good and kind. They are not perfect. What is this state that we have to attain to? What is it? And how do we get there? So most religions were dealing with our relationship with our creator outside of ourselves and pleasing the creator. And as I never believed in the idea of a creator God, I thought I was going to have to think up my path all for myself. But then when I came to Buddhism, I mean, as soon as I read about the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the three signs of beings, yes, that's it. And I was so grateful to the Buddha because he gave us a path. And he explained that this question of perfection is something beyond our ordinary conceptual mind. It's beyond thought. It's beyond words. It's beyond anything which our conceptual mind can conceive, but it can be realized. And here is the path to realize it. Now, 60 years later, I would say that the clearest exposition of it is in the Mahamudra and Dzogchen text, because they are very clear about the nature of our mind and how the non-dual awareness, the primordial awareness, which is the very, very subtle consciousness. Normally, our consciousness is dualistic. There's me and there's other, subject and object. In this, the fundamental primordial nature of the mind is non-dualistic. And all genuine religions, spiritual paths, all genuine spiritual paths understand that. And what is blocking our recognition of our true nature is our ego. This small self which stops us from recognizing something so vast and open and spontaneous, which is our true nature. So yes, I mean, one gets glimpses of it. I mean, until you are really stable in that realization of the nature of the mind 24/7, you're not enlightened. But we can all get glimpses. I mean, not just Buddhists, anybody. The difference is not just to get the glimpse, which is very, very important, but to have a path which then helps us to expand that realization and make it totally stable. So, I mean, I personally am deeply grateful to the Buddha Dharma and to the Buddha for so clearly setting out the path. I don't know anyone who so clearly made it known what we are in our relative nature and what our genuine potential is and how to realize our potential.
Well, we're about at the end of our part of this program with Jetsunma, and we went over a little bit because we lost the connection. So sorry we couldn't get to every single question, but we tried to focus on the questions that we thought would be the most pertinent to everybody on the time that we had it. So thank you for staying a little bit longer than what we discussed. We said 45 minutes, okay, but it's been an hour. So of course, we also thanked Jetsunma and the Sangha, especially the ordained Sangha, yes, for giving her life and her example to all of us. So everyone here has, you know, read about you and read The Cave in the Snow, and, you know, to be sitting here with you is still mind blowing for all of us, myself included. But anyway, we're totally, absolutely thankful. And we just really, really deeply appreciate your example.
Thank you, my dear.
And your sense of humor.
So thank you all for staying with us despite our disconnects. And really thank you also for your questions and for your patience. And if I've muddled you up more than ever, my apologies deeply. I'm sorry. But anyway, lovely to see you all. And thank you very much.
Jolie gave the floor for the nunnery. She donated.
Oh, that was very kind of you. Now she's so much better off.
Yeah, Jojo. Yeah. She's always giving big-hearted like that. She's Ken Rinpoche's main support. He lived with her for many years at her place there. Okay, so everybody take like a 5-minute break, and we're switching to Medicine Buddha now. I'm going downstairs and leaving Jetsunma La to her evening here. Now we're at 8:30 p.m. So take 5 minutes, and I'm switching over to the other computer. If you only came for Jetsunma, that's also fine, but we're continuing on with now Medicine Buddha Puja. So see you in 5. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
so much.
Thank
yeah.
you. Tashi Delek.
We're coming back. I'm going to sign off of this computer, but you all stay on. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tudache, Tashi Delek, Julie.
Thank you so much.
So wonderful to see everybody.
Yes, agreed.
Glad to have you all here.